the space all cleaned up, ready to go. I got sheets of drywall here. This is more than just for this one room, but I got these here. Now we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna start with this wall. I already measured 89.5. Then I got the mark for the receptacle. So I did stretch out my tape, come down here, and you'll see my pencil marks at, there's 89.5 here and one up here. And I was gonna score my line and cut it. All right, you can see we got it scored. Just use razor knife, score the line. Now as we do, pull it out, and it'll snap right where we did that. Then you take your knife again and just score the inside of the paper to cut it off. Basically just score it top, bottom. That piece comes off. Now it's cut. That's all it is to it. And since I can't see it very well, there's a light switch somewhere in here. So you can't really see it in there. So basically what I do is I went through here and then put it so my finger was even right over it. And then drew a little circle. So what I'm gonna do now is actually just cut out this little spot so I can see where the receptacle is. And then I'll actually notch it out bigger. And to notch this out, what I'm going to do is I'm actually end up using this. So I actually cut it out, but I'm going to pull away from the wall to do that so that way I'm not poking into the receptacle. Okay, you can see I was a touch off with my finger, but the light switch itself is right there. So I put a little mark here so you can see where it's at. So now all I'm going to do is, since I know that location, I'm going to get another box of the same size, line it up, and then trace it on. And that's all it is. And cut it out. Here's what she looks like before we cut it out. I'm going to pull it away from the wall and cut it out and see how she fits. All right, I did cut the 3 sides. I just used the utility knife and scored across the top. So now I can grab this, pull it through, and you can see it snap clean. Now I'll just score that off and we'll test fit it. All right, you can see I'm just a touch off. So once I loosen up the receptacle, it'll fit in the bottom. But I need to take a little bit more off the top and just a touch more off this side. But it's really close. All right, got the hole trimmed up. Now we'll test fit it. And actually that will go nice and snug around it. And what I gotta do is go turn off power because I want to pull this receptacle out because the little tabs are getting hung up on the drywall. But that'll be the next step. I'm gonna turn that off. Now I don't need to unwire this whole thing. All I do is I loosen up these 2 screws. So now all I'm gonna do is basically pull it straight out from the box and just angle it like that. And that'll give me plenty to be able to fit the drywall around it. So let's see if we can do this with one hand. Let me put this down. I gotta move the sheet. All right, got the sheet in. So now I can literally just take my switch, pull her back out, and then put the screws back in. I just can't put the screws in with one hand. Okay, got the 2 screws back in. You can see the box is pretty well even with the edge. I mean, it could have been out just 1/8 of an inch more, but it's pretty close. So now I'm gonna go turn power back on and I can go ahead and start getting some screws in here to hold the drywall steady. All right, power's back on. You can see that's working now. So now we just gotta do some screws. Something I forgot to do that I usually do when I'm doing drywall is I'll mark where the studs are at on the floor. I got one piece of tape here, but I got over ambitious putting this up and I forgot to mark. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna back up and we're gonna go around and mark the floor where all the spots are gonna go. Thankfully, since this is a drop ceiling, I can kind of look above and see where my studs are actually coming down through. So I got them marked at the top now instead of usually at the bottom, how I usually do it. So I'm gonna go ahead and get some screws in here to hold this steady. If you're going to be doing any kind of amount of drywall work, you need to go out and get yourself some of these. It's actually a little dimpler. Essentially what it is, it's just a Phillips screwdriver. So it only goes in so far. So that way you won't put your screws through the drywall. They'll stop there and leave a little dent so you can just mud right over them. Let me get some in here and I'll show you what I mean. Okay, I'll show you what I mean here. So I got the screw already just started in the drywall. And you just want to hold this down. You can see even with all the pressure put on it, it didn't push it through, and it left a nice little spot there, so I can literally just drywall mud right over it, make it nice and smooth and invisible. All right, so now we just got to do the rest of the wall. All right, it's late in the day, but you can see this sheet is now up. So I did learn my mistake, and I forgot to mark all my studs, so I am going to do that before I start anymore. But as far as for today, I'm finishing this up because it's getting late in the day, and I'm going to pick it back up in the morning. I had a little epiphany before I do any more of this drywall work. I was looking out here, and where I had this all insulated and blocked off, it's nice and bright out there. Eventually this will probably get changed out with some glass in the door, which will brighten it in here. But I just realized I knocked out the one piece of insulation in the workshop, and I was like, wow, there's a lot of light coming through. So I think what I'm going to end up doing is the same thing. I think I might put a little window in here before I do any drywall work. So I'm going to explore that and look at that quick. All right, I have decided I am going to end up putting a window here. Remember, this is where they used to have the door that was connected up wrong. So this is where I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut this out and do a similar style window to what I did to these over here. It's not going to open or anything. It'll just be a fixed window here. But now we got to work on that. And this is the window I'm going to use. So I'm going to go ahead and get all this stuff cleaned off, get it nice and flattened again. So that way I don't have that edge. So that was in a previous video. If you want to see that, go back and watch that one. But I'll be back soon as I get done with this. All right, didn't show it, but you can see I got the spot in here. What I did was I just cut off this stud because I already had the top one in up here, so I didn't have to worry about that one. So I just literally cut this bottom one, and this is actually the right width that I need. So all that I do is put this one board in. So I got it screwed here and on each end. So now I have a place to set it. Just to update, I got the window here. I got the bracing on the back side. I got the clamp in holding it. And we're just going to go ahead and level this and get this set. You can see I got this all in now. All framed in. It's stuff is in the backside, the adhesive to dry. And you can see now there's actually like a little fenced in room. And this is from the workshop side. So you can see there's actually a little window here where the door used to be. So, and then I got to put the insulation back in, but this makes it so I can just reach around for right now. But the adhesive's all in. I'm just going to let that set up and dry. And I got my trusty clamp holding everything tight. But other than that, you can see there is shims underneath. The other one's covered by the glue just to make everything level. But that's all for now. I'm going to wait for this to set up before I do any more. I don't want pressure moving this around. I haven't updated in a little while yet. But you can see I did get another sheet drywall up and hanging. I did have to go through because I had forgot to put some blocking in here and over on that side also. I had to put some in, but got one sheet up. Since I'm doing this by myself, the method I use is in the stud itself. In here, you can see there's a little screw hole. Basically, I put a screw in there on each side just to hold the sheet up there, and then I can lift it, the little inch or whatever, and put a couple screws in and get it started. So you can see we're nice and tight against the ceiling. And now we'll do the bottom piece. You can see the difference here with this sheet. I do have it just sitting right on the floor because this is actually a floor that's not on contact with the ground, because you can see there's actually is an edge here. So what we're going to do is actually at that end down there, pretty much just mark a line, the same as up at this end. Scratch a line here on the front, and then one down at the other end, and then a chalk line between the two. Cut her off, and then she should fit right in there tight. And here you can see what I mean with it sitting on the floor. I basically got the line right there, put the chalk line down, and then this side was lined up with that also. So you can see it's just a hair below. So as long as I cut somewhat even on that line, it'll slide right underneath there, and if there's any imperfections on it, it'll actually match it. You can see I got the sheet up now. I got a couple screws at the top. I got to finish putting the rest of the screws in. I did have a spot here in the wall where there was something behind it when I went to push on and crack some of it here. But that's okay because the seam's going to be covering that anyway. And you can see this side is tapered, this side is not. That's why there's this edge here. But it's going to be, this far with the joint compound, so it won't make a difference anyway. It would be better if you could put your cut edge on the bottom, so that way you had your two tapers together. But in the real world, it's not always going to work that way. Almost forgot that I wanted to actually put receptacle on this wall on both sides, So thankfully I still have everything else on the other side open, so I can still get through the wall and run my power up through. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the boxes and everything mounted for that right now. Receptacle boxes are in, so it doesn't seem it, but this is actually the right marking for that. It's just the insulation is puffed out. So I got the one over here and the one over here. Now, if you're running any wire through, make sure you're putting these in. I mean, it's just a real cheap thing to make sure you don't put a screw through your wiring. But that's it. I'm not going to show the wiring portion of it. If you want to know how I'm going to do it, it's basically just a basic receptacle and wiring up. But I'm not going to show how to do that wiring. So if you have questions, leave them in the comments below, or, consult an electrician. As you can see, I got more drywall work done. Just wanted to stop and mention something here, because it might seem like these are kind of close together, but keep in mind when your seams where they lie, because here's something that, actually will work out just about perfect for me. Instead of having to redo all those, I can just do it kind of, and then when I put my trim on here, you can see that's going to be here, and there's going to be another facing board flat here. So it's all going to line up. If I actually got a trim that's a little bit wider than this, I can do it all in one piece. But this isn't the trim I'm going to be putting on there, but you get the idea. So one more piece down. The other thing I like to do too is I leave these little spots, the real skinny ones, kind of for last. Because a lot of the times the cutoffs that you do, which you can see I have a little pile of them here. So some of these, they're kind of small. I can't really use them for too much, but this will work good for around the door. So that way I have a good piece for that, and just to keep the measurements the same, so the thickness of the wall will be the same all the way through. And something else I'll point out is it's actually nice having basically a little step stool here, or a little work table. So that way you don't have to keep picking everything up, or if you don't have your tool belt, this makes it so much easier. You can just throw everything on here. And I save these to throw my screws in, because the boxes that these things come in, they're garbage. But I just label them for the different sizes. You see I'm using the 1 5/8 for this drywall. I could have used 1 1/2, but this is fine. But I do recommend having something that you can use as a work table. Makes it so much simpler. Been about a week or so since I've done any more of this, so now it's time to get back to it. Get more of the drywall installed. You can see what has been done. So we're gonna go ahead and cut all this and then start working out here to get all this done. So I'll be back in a little while. Pay attention when you're doing your drywall. Like, I know the measurement from here, but one thing I was looking at is if I put the piece on here first, then I'm gonna have to put a piece kind of behind here. So what I went ahead and did is I'm gonna put the piece on here first. I can cut this off. And then when I put the other piece on it, it'll actually go right up against it flush, and I don't have to mess with trying to cut a real thin piece to put in there. I probably didn't specify to say, but this area right here, I'm not going to put drywall in there, because when I get the trim piece on here, it's going to cover the whole thing. So if anything, I might put a little bit more, another piece of the foam in here, but that would be it. So that way that trim is going to cover and go right up against this. And what I'll do is I'll put a bead of caulk on that side of the trim, so when I push it against, it'll seal all the way around. Now I just got to trim this off. So we're just going to go ahead and score all the way down this, and then snap that off, and then I'll be ready to put this piece on. Did decide to go ahead and put some drywall in there, just so that way it's filled in the same. So when you get up to here, the other piece coming across, everything will match up. So wasn't going to, but went ahead and did that. But I'm still probably not going to do anything with this seam. Maybe just put some mud in there, but I'm not going to do a taping and everything else on that, because that's just too small to get in there. You can see how nice and neat this corner came out. We're just going to make it much easier to put the stuff on. Now, something I've learned too over the years, this edge of the drywall here, this has the taper. So that way when I put it on here, I can build this up and make it pretty much flat. So you can see how there's some here that'll get just filled in with the mud, and then the little strip will go over the corner. Just a reminder, if you want to make your job a lot easier, you can see I do have that stuff marked down there, so I know where the studs are. I'm not worried about corners, because I know in each corner I'm going to have one. It's just, you know, where the studs are on the wall. This way you know where they are, and you just mark them, so that way it makes it much easier. This is a situation you might find yourself in. So I got a piece cut to go in here, but I mean, it's 44 by 89.5. All right, but it will not fit into this small little alcove. So what you end up doing is basically cut a line down the middle, snap it in half, bend it in, and then you can put it straight again. So I'll show you that in a second. Okay, line is scored. So now we just snap it in half, which is really hard to do with one hand. So let me get this folded and I'll show you. All right, so now we got it folded in half. You can see it's much shorter now, but this end does not get cut all the way. So now I can carry this into the space. All right, now we got it in here, we can unfold it. And then the only thing you might have here may be a little crease, but that would be about it. So let me get this unfolded up on the wall and I'll show you. Okay, I don't have any screws holding it in yet, but you can see it's up here. If I get in here close, you can see, you might be able to, the line where it was creased. But that's the extent of it. And if I just do a little mudding over that, you're never gonna see it. But that's how you get a piece that's too big to fit into the room, in the room. So basically I brought it in, stood it up, and then flipped the top part up. Used a piece of scrap to cut off for up here. I actually kind of notched everything out, put it up, screwed it in, then came back and cut that. So I just used the rotor zip and just zipped along that side and this side. So now I still got to do the bottoms of these and then the little strips, but we're making progress. You can see the little room has pieces all over the place now. And you can see, if you look close, I don't know if you can even see the line right there. That was the seam where we creased it. Because you can't really feel it, but you can see a line. Been a little while since I updated. You can see you got all drywall, everything done. So the little room is all drywalled in now. Now it's got to work on getting this side finished up. Then we'll be all done with drywalling this part, and then I got to start seaming. Yeah, I know I used a lot of pieces here, but like I said, I'm trying to do this on the cheap, so I'm using up the little scraps that I have for the small spots. Did a little bit of work without putting it on video, but you can see I got started with all the joints. So now I got the mudding started. So now I'm just gonna go back. This is just the first coat. So yeah, we'll have 2 more after this, because especially like on this is the first coat. Then the second coat will actually span out basically twice as far, and the third will be a big over the whole thing, just a skim coat to make it nice and smooth. So definite progress, and we'll end it here because no one really wants to watch someone put drywall up.